Hi everybody, welcome back to the garden. I'm just outside briefly today to grab a little tarragon from the herb garden for a little processing in the kitchen. Tarragon is my favorite herb to use fresh by far, but it also loses a lot of its flavor when it's dried. We definitely miss it during the winter months. So I'm going to cut a whole bunch of it today, bring it into the kitchen, and try out a few different ways to preserve it for winter. I have this 3 by 5 foot bed here. Hi Buster. I have this 3 by 5 foot bed right here that is full of tarragon. I think there's 8 plants in total. By mid-August, it's starting to look a little bit tired, but I'll see what I can find for fresh shoots. The fresher young growth always tastes way better anyway. So I'm gonna take the time to find as much as I can. There are some nice shoots hidden down in the corner. I think that's enough. I'm going to set this here for a second because I think I'm going to go look at some flowers. I have to harvest flowers for a farmer's market tomorrow, which I can't really do while it's wet. These gorgeous Rebecchias are starting to look so full. I should have quite a few of those. Bumblebee doing his thing. A lot of these Indian summer Rebecchias are a bit too far gone to sell, so I think I will pick as many of those as I can and we'll just bring them in the house to enjoy. To get these in some water first, but these are just sitting in here for me, so these are so much bigger than the common Rebecchia that grows as a perennial here, kind of a similar height. There, just a little jar of sunshine on a rainy day. Now on to the tarragon. Definitely going to need a cutting board, my good knife. So the first thing I'm going to make today is a tarragon butter. I mentioned before that tarragon tends to lose a lot of its flavor when it's dried, and a few years ago I did try packing it in oil. I know that seems to be the popular thing to do, and freezing it in plastic bags, but I didn't really like the texture when it was just frozen, and the oil didn't work for me either. This was 3 or 4 years ago, but I seem to remember it went a little moldy on the top pretty quick. It was raining this morning, so this is all pretty wet. I'm going to pat it down a little bit first before I start pulling it apart. So what I do instead is preserve it in butter. So let me show you how I do that. I do have a second thing that I want to try, so I'm going to keep the nicest stems for that, and the rest I'm just going to pull the leaves off. I find tarragon stems are strong enough that they don't break off in your hand when you do this. That's so satisfying when that works. I am leaving a lot of the larger, older leaves because I find the flavor is just so much better on the tender, younger growth. This is likely going to take a while, and you guys don't want to watch me do this for 20 minutes, so let's use a little bit of editing magic. So I'm all finished, and this is what I've got. A very full, this is a 2-cup measure. There we go, 2-cup measuring cup, that's full to the brim, so it's a little bit over 2 cups, and I have this much left over. So a little over 2 cups of fresh tarragon leaves and ½ a pound of butter. This has been warming up on the counter for a couple of hours, but I'm gonna pop it in the microwave just for 10 seconds at a time until it's soft enough that I could easily stir it. Perfect. So have a look at that texture. Easy enough to stir. There's a little bit of that is melted, but once I mix it all together, a whisk would work just as well for this too. I just hate cleaning them. And our dishwasher's broken at the moment, so that's fun. There, I'm gonna set that aside. And we have to chop this up. I think I'm gonna do it half at a time. There is no exact science as to how much you have to chop this. I'm going to do each chunk for about a minute. Oh, you can really smell that now. Okay, so the first batch can go in. There, so let's stir this up and we'll see what it looks like. It is good. I definitely want to have more tarragon and less butter. The butter's really just to hold it and keep it from getting freezer burned. And yes, this is going to go in the freezer, but if it's something you're going to use right away, it doesn't have to go in the freezer. I would say, though, that I wouldn't want to keep it more than 2 weeks in the fridge. Don't quote me on that. Mine usually gets frozen right away. So that looks pretty good, but it can definitely take some more. So let's do the other half. Oh yeah, there we go. So that butter was really soft, and I'm going to leave this for close to an hour. It's going to slowly cool off, and in that time, a lot of that tarragon flavor is going to be released into the butter as well. So I'm going to leave this here for about an hour. Every 10 to 15 minutes or so, I'll stir it around a little bit, give it a bit of a mix, and at that point, I'll show you how I freeze it. It has been more than an hour, probably an hour and a half or so, just because I was doing other things. It is not a problem leaving this sit a little bit longer than an hour. That's just usually how much time I find it takes to get to the right consistency to put onto a baking sheet, which is our next step. So next we have our baking sheet ready. It's moving around a bit, so I'm going to put this here for now. The first year that I did this, I used ice cube trays, but it is a massive pain in the butt to clean butter out of ice cube trays. So I didn't do that again. This is butter though, so it holds together pretty well. And all I'm going to do, starting in this corner, is put drops on there just like that. It's hard to tell how much space I need, but I can use multiple baking sheets if needed. Now we packed a ton of fresh tarragon leaves into this, so I'm not doing very big drops. It's a habit from making cookies to leave expansion room when you're dropping something onto a cookie sheet, but this is not going to expand because we are not baking it. And we'll use the spatula for the last one so that we don't waste a single drop. Oh, that's going to be a big one. I think that's going to be 2. Let's put one right there, squish the other one over there. That was almost perfect. Next, I'm going to pop this in the freezer. We do have a small deep freeze downstairs, but there we go. That'll balance there just perfectly. So now we wait. We don't have to wait till they're completely frozen, just till they're good and solid, and then I'm going to pick them up. I'm going to put them all in a container and store them in the freezer. They are really easy to just grab one and toss it in a frying pan. I use them mostly when I'm making scrambled eggs or a chicken dish. Chicken and tarragon and mustard, sometimes a little bit of honey, is delicious and one of our all-time favorite chicken dishes. I'm going to do another few batches over the next couple weeks or so. I always like to do dill, and I'll sometimes do tarragon and chive combination as well. So I'm not sure about that one, but I might give it a try. So I'm going to clean up my counter a little bit, and then we'll come back for recipe number 2. And I'm back. So I thought we were going to do 2 recipes today. We're actually going to do 3. We are going to do a tarragon vinegar, and we're also going to do a tarragon salt. I haven't done either of them before, but they're supposed to be pretty quick recipes. Now we need the vinegar to come to a boil apparently before mixing it in with the tarragon. So that is on the stove warming up. And while that happens, we're going to do the salt. So with the salt, all I need to do is strip the leaves, similar to what I did with the butter. So we're going to pull off, I think I'm going to use about 2/3 of this tarragon, which looks like a lot. We're going to do that with the salt because I think once I blend it down, it's going to reduce quite a bit. So I'm going to pull all these leaves off and then pour the salt in on top, and we'll see if we can get it blended up really nice. This is just a small mini food processor, but I think it will do what we need to do. Well, the smell is definitely there. I think that's pretty good. There's definitely a little pink salt at the bottom that didn't get thoroughly mixed in. As I stir it around, it'll get mixed in just fine, I think. We spread it into a thin layer and we let it sit to dry. And as I stir it around a couple times a day, I should be able to tell when it's properly dry. And at that point, can you put it in an airtight container? That's another one done. Now I think my vinegar is just about boiling, so I'm just putting a cloth down. I'm gonna find a funnel. Where's my jar? Oh, there's the lid I need though, but I still don't have a funnel. Aha! This cheap piece of plastic gets used a lot every pickling season. I'm getting too excited. I guess I better put the tarragon in the jar first. So I have to again pull all the leaves off and pack them into a jar. Stripped a lot of tarragon today. One of my favorite gardeners once said the best thing about growing your own herbs is using them in abundance. And that is so true. So there is our jar, about a third or so full of tarragon leaves. I have labeled it tarragon and white wine vinegar and with the date because the recipe states that you should let it sit for 2 to 4 weeks and then strain it into a different container without the leaves. So get the funnel. I'm going to pour this in very slowly because I have just had a thought that maybe I should have warmed up the jar first. There, I was hoping to fill that jar completely, but that will have to do. According to recipes, I'm going to let that sit for 2 to 4 weeks. As soon as it cools, I'm gonna go put it down in the pantry shelf where it's a little bit cooler. So all of that took maybe 10 minutes for both of those recipes. That was super fast. And I'm gonna go check on the butter now. Yeah, perfect. And butter. Trying to avoid using plastic bags because they don't last as long as these. I can reuse these containers for years if I'm careful, so I think I'm going to do that instead. There, look, I can easily fit twice as much of that in there. Last step. I do use painter's tape for everything. You guys are probably looking at this upside down, aren't you? Not that this is any better, because I am a lefty. Hang on. There we go. So this is going downstairs in my deep freeze. I will likely be adding to it. It's nice to have a nice full container over winter. This I know I will use a lot of because I think this is my 3rd or even 4th year doing this. Nobody's screaming. They're fine. The salt is going to go down on the pantry shelf to dry near the dehumidifier. And the tarragon vinegar is going to go down there as well, but I'll bring that up again in somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks and strain it out into a different container. So I'll update you guys on that for sure. I would love to hear how you use your herbs over the winter. If you have something that you do to preserve them that I didn't mention today, I would love to try out a couple of new things. So please let me know in the comments. If there is an herb that you want to know how to preserve over the winter, let me know that as well, because I might make a couple more of these as the season winds down and we head into winter. So thanks again for hanging out with me today, guys. I will see you hopefully outside in a few days' time. Thank you so much for watching. Happy gardening.